very special guest today. You see him right here next to me. That's Coach D. Coach D. Connor is going to be speaking to you guys today. And so, as always, I remind you of our expectations. We're listening actively. We're paying attention. We're not looking at people. We're not making eyes. We're not being funny because we have a very special guest visiting us and giving us time. So let's be mindful. Let's think of any questions you may have. And with that, let's give it up for Coach D.
All right, I appreciate it. If you don't mind, if you can put that picture up there. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question here in a second. Before I do, let me get a volunteer real quick. Who can name off the six? I got a hand up. Name off the 6 principles that you go by.
The Solar Six. The Solar Six. There's leadership, there's humility, there's self-awareness, there's empathy, curiosity, and there's grit.
Yeah. Grit. There you go. All right, cool. So, just if you remind me, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get him one of those Urban Stoics T-shirts, and I'll get him a book, one of my books as well. All right. What's your name? Noel. All right. I'll make sure we get that to you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Good. So he named off the 6 principles that you go by, right? And when I talked to Driscoll, she was like, "I want you to talk to the guys about what you do, where you come from, what it took to start your business, and so forth, right?" And so when I looked at those 6 principles, it was 3 that I saw that I really identified with, right? And so one was self-awareness. That self-awareness one, I think, is probably the most important one because without knowing who you are, a lot of times you don't know where you're going and what's required of you, right? So self-awareness for sure. And then the leadership, I'll get to the grit in a minute, but the leadership part of it was another one that's important. So I got another question. When you see this, you see leader, you see boss, right? You see 2 separate things. Who can give me the definition of boss real quick? Definition.
It's a person who tells other people what to do without doing anything.
There you said. I don't say without doing any work, but they have authority over people, right? And they tell people what to do. What's the definition of a leader?
It's
Go ahead, stick. What's your name again? Go ahead.
my name is Shep.
Shep. All right, Shep. What's the definition of a leader?
A leader is basically someone who starts stuff off. The persons who usually are leading people, and they're usually still boss and authority, just they're also doing the work.
There you go. So when you look at the actual definition, if you look it up, you're gonna look up boss and it's gonna say exactly what he said, but it's gonna expound a little bit more, and it's gonna say somebody who has authority over others and tells them what to do, basically, right? That's a boss. A leader is exactly it's the same thing in a sense, but you do it by action. It's something that you actually do. So instead of sitting behind the desk and just pointing a finger and directing, you're out in the front and you're leading. So we look at those principles that you have as a leader. That's the main difference. And so me owning a gym, I take this approach. There's a lot of people who take this approach to their companies, to their schools, organizations, whatever they do. And the reason why I identify with Solar Prep, because you have a bunch of people here who take this approach, right? And they live by those 6 principles themselves. That's why they're able to teach that to you. That's why I'm here right now, because Driscoll was like, "Hey, coach, we want to do Solar Fit." So we did Solar Fit. We did it together. We came out, we went outside, we worked out, we did a bunch of different things, right? Reporting to the kids. But guess what? They're pushing Solar Fit to you because they come to the gym and they work out, right? And they come to a gym where all my coaches, I don't have a coach on staff who doesn't work out, who doesn't compete, who didn't compete at a high level, right? Because I want us to have this mindset when people walk through the door. I want them to know that we're bought in, and what we do and what we preach is what we do. And so that's why people are bought in. So you moving forward and whatever you choose to do, whether you try to start your own business, become a teacher, whatever it is you choose to do, if you take that approach, right, you'll have success. I don't know where your beliefs lie and so forth, but I believe in the scriptures. I believe in the Bible. I believe in Jesus, right? And when you look at Jesus, he had 12 disciples, right? But he didn't just go get 12 disciples and say, "Hey, I have all authority and power. Y'all go do the work." Before he sent them to work, what did he do? He did the work, right? He did the work. He was out healing. He was out helping. He was out doing what he had to do, even to the point of his life being threatening, but he still did the work. So then when it was time for them to follow, they had a leader who they could look at and say, "I'm going to do exactly what and I know my life might be in jeopardy, but I'm going to do exactly what he did because he gave us a blueprint. He showed us how to do those things," right? And so that's the type of leader that you want to be. And you don't have to wait till you become an adult, right? You don't have to wait till you become an adult. I have 4 children at home. I have a 14-year-old daughter. I have a 10-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old son, and a 6-year-old son. And I've been teaching them since they were young to be this type of leader so that when they go out in an environment that might not be exactly what they know in a public setting, they know to operate and conduct themselves in this way. You can do the same thing. And so you don't have to wait till you become an adult. So right now you have, what is it, 6th through 8th in here right now, or 4th through 8th? 6th through 8th right now. So you have 8th graders who among you in your classroom, you have a couple leaders. 7th grade, among you, you have a couple leaders. 6th grade, yep. So right now, somebody's watching you, watching how you behave, watching your actions, And you'll start to see little cliques as you go throughout. It's like that throughout life. Somebody's always a leader within a circle, right? What type of leader are you going to be? Because somebody's going to be following you. And whatever type of leader you are, you can identify the rest of them as the same as you, because as is the leader, so are the followers. So I would say, take these principles that you have, because there's 6 of them that you could choose from. There's plenty more that you can live by. But the 6 that you have right now, this is your core. This is what you live by right now. And you can start to adopt that mindset right now and just double down on it and become that type of person throughout life, and you're going to be successful, right? But you got to really identify with it. And I saved the third one that I identified with last, which is grit. Because grit, when I first applied for medical school, and I started going to medical school to be a chiropractor, right? One of my first classes, the very first principle that they taught us was grit. Now, this is medical school. You would think maybe biology, I don't know, maybe some type of science. No, the very first thing they taught us was grit, because they told us it was going to be tough. They told us that if you're going to make it through this program or any higher level program, you're going to have grit. But that's something that they didn't have to teach me. I already know that just because of how I came up, where I came up, type of people I was around. My grandmother raised me. She was born in Gulfport, Mississippi in the 30s. She's 90 years old now, right? So if you know anything about history, Mississippi, South, Bible Belt, it was rough for so-called blacks back then, right? And so for her to come from that environment, move all the way to California, go to UCLA, become a nurse, move to Texas, take care of everybody's children, it took a lot of grit for her to do that. And I saw the latter part of that, right? And that's what gave me my foundation. So when it comes to grit, that one I identify with the most, because even starting a business, I didn't understand when I started how much grit I was going to need. But guess what? Because I had it and I identified with it from my past, like how you are right now, I was able to use that, push forward, and get to the point where I am today, right? And the point where I am today is the same as I was when I was 12 years old. When I was 12 years old, some of y'all age, I went outside of my backyard and I built my first weight set because I wanted to train. I wanted to play football. I wanted to be strong. But because of our circumstances, I couldn't afford to go to a gym. Grandmother really wasn't interested in sports like that. It was all about education with her. So if I wanted to make it happen, I had to make it happen. So I built my first weight set at the age of 12. And from that point forward, I never looked back, right? And I'm still the same way to this day. They'll tell you at my gym, I don't have a gym that was funded by a Fortune 500 company, or I didn't go get a big bank loan. Now, I built it from the bottom up. Me and other people. I never did anything on my own. It was me, other people who believed in the vision. We went in, hands got dirty, right? Couple scars from cuts and so forth. And still to this day, I still get my hands dirty building and expanding on what I have. Because I believe in what I'm doing, and I have the grit, the mindset, and I'm that type of leader that if my coaches see me doing that, I know they're going to pour into it the same as well. And so what I'm saying is, if you can identify with at least one of those principles that you have, right, at least one of them, and you really take a hold to it and see where you are right now, and you continue in that path, you're going to be successful, all right? So I know I don't have that much time, and I know they wanted me to make sure I gave you time to ask questions so I can answer as best I can. And so I'll take the time right now to do that. Go ahead.
What encouraged you to become a coach?
A lot. That was your question too? Well, I mean, I knocked 2 birds out with 1 stone. So when I went to college at first, I wanted to be a technology management major because I have that type of mindset where I like to build and do things, right? But I wasn't passionate about the direction of that program. I was always passionate about fitness and people. And so it just based off of what they were offering at that time, I went with a degree plan that lined up with what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be in this field. I didn't know I was going to be a gym owner. I had no aspirations of owning a gym. I didn't want to be a PE teacher either. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I know I wanted to impact people somehow. So this was like the path that they had for me. And it just formulated to what it is today. So what made me choose that path was one area didn't work out for me. I didn't have a passion for it. The other one did. And once I started in it, I started to see like this is really what I'm good at. So when it came to anatomy and things of that nature and movement, I was good at it. And so I doubled down like I told y'all to do. I doubled down on it. And I just recently got my master's. And I'm working on getting into a PhD program right now in the same field. So it's just something that I believe in. Yep.
How much can you bench?
At my prime, so when I tested for the NFL, I did 225 25 times. And most I ever did in 1 rep max was 375.
I do like 300.
Yeah.
How many obstacles did you have to go through?
I cannot count the obstacles because I'm still going through them. The obstacles always pop up. But what I can tell you is every time they came, I go by a saying called sisu. Have y'all ever heard that term before? Sisu. So there's a scripture that talks about a man going through adversity, right? So a man that goes through adversity, this is how you know who you are. When you go through adversity, it's like putting gold through the fire. When you put the gold through the fire, what you do at the end of it, you get the pure gold. But during the process, anything that's not pure, it comes off. So likewise with a man, when you go through the fire of life You get to see who you really are. All the things that don't belong, like they get burned off, and who you present yourself to be through the end, that's who you really are. So I don't know how many obstacles, but I went through them. And Sisu is a saying basically that says like you live or you look for adversity so that you can like grow. All right. Any other questions? No questions. I was told that y'all like ask questions about salaries and all types of stuff. We got a question over here. Yeah.
What inspired you to inspire others?
I think because I had a lack, right? And when you're reading the scriptures in Genesis, one of the very first sins was to focus on lack, right? Because we had an abundance of trees, we had an abundance of whatever we wanted. And the one thing we focused on was lack. And that's the one thing that made us fall off, right? So I came up in a situation where there was lack, and I didn't want to feel like that, and I didn't want others to feel like that. So like going through those situations gives you the inspiration. Like you don't have to go search for it because it's right there. So what gave me the inspiration is like my father was in and out of prison, right? Well, I don't want to, I'm not that type of father. I want to be present in my kids' life, right? So like situations like that teach you that others have, I guess, needs and so forth, and if you can do your best to support them, do it.
What's your salary?
I don't have a salary since I do put myself on a salary, but I'll say this. I do have a six-figure business, but of those six figures, majority of my money goes out toward the people that I invest in, meaning my coaches, right? Like I make sure that I'm able to provide jobs for my community, right? So the coaches that I hire, I make sure like payroll, even when I started, and I didn't have that much money coming in, I make sure my coaches got paid, right? Because that's like the main thing. I told you I'm that type of leader that we saw on the board earlier. So I was out doing the work with them. I had while I was opening my gym, I was still working at a performance center in McKinney. So I still had a job while I was opening my gym, right? And so when it comes to salary in this industry, it varies. And it just kind of depends on which way you go. I had a job where I was paid $40,000 salary. I had a job come take me from that one, and they paid me $10,000 more plus whatever I want to make in PTs. So like in this industry, it's the sky's the limit. You could be a 6-7 figure business. It's $1 billion industry plus, and some people own franchises and they make millions, right? And some people have smaller gyms and they don't make that much. But it's really about what you do with what you have, because you can be a billionaire, be miserable, a millionaire, be miserable. Thousandaire and happy because you don't have the same stresses, right? And so it just depends on how you take care of your life and so forth. But I would say, on a minimal in this industry, if you're just a coach, on a personal training level, you could probably make at a minimal $20 to like $50 an hour. If you coach for a collegiate program, depending on what level it's at, you make anywhere from $35,000 up to $100,000. So it just kind of depends on what direction you go in the industry.
What are some quotes or advice you would give me so I could work out in the future?
You said work out in the future?
Yeah.
So-
I work out now, but I just want motivation.
Like, keep going?
advice.
Yeah, to keep going. So I would say make it priority. When you look at majority of the problems in our society as far as like deaths and so forth and health concerns, it always goes down to the diet. You have what's called the gut-brain axis, right? We always talk about the brain and the heart, but the gut-brain axis is one of the most important. So what you eat matters the most. Yeah, you can work out and move, but if your diet isn't right, so a lot of other things will fail. And so if you can take care of that aspect and make your diet one of the main focus and just continue to move, you'll be good. Just always remember, use it or lose it. So if I don't run and jump and lift, and it's going to get weaker over time. And that's with anything. If you just leave a carton of milk out and do nothing, what's going to happen? It's going to rot, right? You don't have to do anything, right? So like movement is what creates life. So just stay moving.
Did you have an injury that possibly inspired you?
Yeah. How you know about it? It's like,
I don't know.
it's like,
I was thinking.
yeah, no, I did though. I did. So when I was in college, and when I was in college, when I was a technology management major, I was playing football and I ended up tearing my ACL, right? I switched that major, and when I switched my major at that time, it just so happened that it happened at the same time. I didn't know what an ACL was. I had no idea what that was, right? Because I never really dealt with it like that as far as in-depth looking to anatomy. And so I tore my ACL, my meniscus, fractured my kneecap all in one play. And then I had surgery, and I started understanding the body more, going through the rehab process and so forth. So that did play a part in it. It wasn't like, hey, I did this now, but it did play a part in like my, I guess, ability to like start paying attention more to what I'm doing.
Last closing question.
Yeah, so I'm still building the gym, right? I'm still building the gym because you learn a lot throughout the process. I started in 2018. Well, actually, before that, I had another gym before that. and it failed miserably because it was just me by myself, right? And I didn't have a team. It was just me. I'm thinking I'm gonna go in. It was smaller and cheaper, so you would think it would be easier to build, but no, it wasn't, right? And so from that, I went and did another internship at SMU. I worked for my mentor at his gym, Combine Fitness, and then from Combine Fitness, I went to D1, and from D1, another company, and then I opened my gym. And so all of that includes the building because I was building my community before I opened my gym. So all of that includes building it, and even now I'm expanding and doing certain things at the gym to make it even better, to make it a one-stop hub for everybody. I'm going to school, making sure I educate myself, and make sure I'm doing everything I can to provide what I can to the people. And so I'm still building it until I get to a point where all my systems are set up, and then I can take that and repeat it at different locations.
Get up for the first time actually. Get up for Coach D.
Thank you.
We're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are very grateful for you taking the moment to come and connect with us, sharing a little bit about your advice, your life story with us, and of course tying it back in to our principles, right? The Solar Six. So one last time,
All right.
thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Yeah. Thank y'all.
So we will